the business plan. This is what we live and breathe at the center. The business plan is the story of your business. That's just what it is. And every business has a life cycle, just like a person. It's gonna be born and it's gonna die. So you need to figure out how long you want to be alive. And that's just the bottom line. Not everybody survives. And it's okay, but you need to understand that that's the reality of it. Your business is not going to live on forever. So how far do you want to take it, right? And you have to really look at the future. How do you want to get out? You want to look at the exit before you start. So you want to be able to be in charge of that decision. You either sell it at a profit. You can sell it to anybody that you know. It could be an employee, it could be a partner, it could be something that you give to your children, it could be something that you leave as a legacy. So you have options, but you want to be able to understand that this is how far you want to go, and then you have to be able to have a plan of how you want to get out, because this is going to help you determine how much you want to put into that business. Okay, so the business plan is a statement of what the business is, how it operates, how it's managed, how it interacts in the marketplace, how it functions financially, and it really focuses on the strengths and weaknesses of the business and of the owner. So we are doing this because history has shown that really about 90% of businesses don't make it within the first 5 years, unfortunately. But that's just how it goes. And the main reason why it fails is because you run out of cash. Once your business runs out of cash, you are dead. So, how fast do you want to die? There are ways for you to be able to stay afloat for a certain period of time, but that means you have to keep borrowing money. And that's a scary thing. And I've been there, so you don't want to do that. And the reason why you run out of cash is because you didn't manage it properly. Number one, you didn't know what you were doing. That was just the bottom line. Didn't know what you're doing. Number two, external factors that you had no control over. And that happens too. But you need to be aware that that's the reason why the business will fail. So we do have an outline available to you. We have the template at the center. But every business plan has the same backbone, same skeleton. So you're going to see a variety of business plans online from different types of organizations, but it's all going to tell the same story. Okay? So you are going to have a cover page, table of contents, executive summary, and then you're going to go into the sections, what we call the meat. Business description, the marketing plan, the management plan, and then the financial plan. But really the most important part of your business plan, and this is a hint, the attachments. So why do you think the attachments are more important than the content? Where are these attachments coming from? What are they? It's research, so it's coming from another source. It's a resume, so it's providing credibility. It's a lease agreement. It's a floor plan. It's proposal to sell. It's a standard operating procedure. These are things that provide credibility to the plan, because anybody can write the content of a plan and make it look really pretty, but if you have nothing to back it up, then it really doesn't matter. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So, how many of you still buy books? Yay! The bookstore is not dead yet. So, before you pick up that $50 book and decide to pay it, what do you do to that book? What are you looking for? Is it the right book? Number one, is this the right book? And do I want to invest $50, to this book? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to read not the executive summary, but the summary, the preface. You're going to read the intro. You're going to read something about the author, right? So that's exactly what this is. So when you're putting your plan together, you need to have this in place. It's the first thing the reader is going to see. This is a snapshot of the business. It should only be 2 paragraphs long. If it's longer than that, something's wrong. So all you're doing is following the W's, so who, what, where, when, why, and then of course you can put a how. So follow the rules of writing when you do that to describe the business in a nutshell so they have an idea of what they're going to read. The second paragraph is just going to talk about what you're going to need to start the business. So you're probably just going to say the business will require $50,000 to start. It will need $25,000 in the form of a loan, and the owner will invest $25,000. So all the numbers match up. But we know when we're reading this, oh, this person needs to get a loan. Oh, and they're contributing 50% of the loan from their own money. So that's a good thing. So that's the last thing you're going to put in the executive summary, okay? Then you have the table of contents. You wouldn't believe this, but this is really important because when you turn this in to a lender, they won't read the whole plan. They want to be able to navigate through it. So it shows that number one, you're professional, you're organized, and it helps the reader get through your plan faster. So don't forget the numbers. Business description. Now this is where we get into the meat. So that was easy, right? Easy first few pages. So now the business description. The history and business ownership. By the time you turn your plan into whomever is going to read it, you need to have a name, please. So make sure that you have a name for the organization and for the business. So you're either going to be Denise Mendiola doing business as ABC Store, or you're going to have MLLC doing business as ABC Store. So I'm either a sole prop or I'm an LLC. That's how we're going to figure out what type of organization you're going to be. So I'm going to always hint you with the attachment. The attachment you will have with this is the organization paperwork. So an LLC member formation, or if it's a corporation, you're going to have articles and bylaws attached to the back. Even if it's just a sample, just to have something back there. The address of the business, lot, block, and track number. Okay, make sure you have that in there. Then ownership. Who are the owners of the business? So in this area, you need to identify who they are and then how much of the business they own. So sole prop, obviously you own 100%. But if there are other owners, you have to describe what percent they own. So why do you think this is important? Anybody?
Wake up.
Yeah, liability. So anybody that owns 20% or more is considered a principal owner of the business. So they're definitely going to be looking at your credit background. If anybody has criminal history in some cases, they're going to look at your resumes. You're definitely going to guarantee that loan. So they want to know who holds liability and how much liability do you own in this business. So legal form of business is going to be there, so your organization. And then you start talking about things like where did the idea come from and when will the business start. So you need to have a date. The reason why this date is important is because it's going to transfer over, or it's also going to show up in your financial projections. So just keep in mind that this is the narrative of the business, and the business has two parts, the narrative and the financial projections. So whatever you put in the narrative, you have to put in the financial projections. So whatever number that we're going to see here, maybe if you're going to be working with me, whatever number we see here, the date, we're going to put that as your first month for the financial projections when we start looking at your sales forecast, okay? So what are you selling? Very important. It's the key to the business. This is the core. You need to be able to identify what you are going to be selling. So you back this up with a product list, an inventory list. If you're selling food, a menu. If it's services, a rate sheet. That's what we want to see. And that would be an attachment, but you're also going to describe it in this section. So what are we looking for? We're looking for the products identified by categories. So preferably by 3 categories. Okay, so that's another hint because it's going to show up on your projections. And then we want to see cost, price, and profit margin. Okay, so definitely get that one down. And the reason for that is in order for us to work on the numbers, we're going to go through the gross margins page. We're going to need those numbers to do that. We want to know that for every product that you're selling, you're making a certain amount of money. Is that profit margin enough to pay for the overhead? Is it enough for you to break even? Is it enough for you to be able to put back in the business to buy more inventory? So that part's going to be really critical. Okay. Mission and vision and goals. So in this area, you're going to talk about the vision that you have for the business, the mission statement, and then the goals. Another hint, your goals are for 3 years. And the reason for that is it's going to match your sales projections. We're going to be doing this for 3 years. Okay. So as an example, you want to do something like the business plans to achieve $100,000 by the end of the first year. So give us numbers, because that's something that could be measured. And we can take that number, we're going to go to the end of the line on your gross sales at the end of the first year, and it better say $100,000. So that's what we're looking for. Is it matching up? So do that for your goals. Try to use measurable goals. Okay? So use a SMART method. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay.
So your example, when you said $100,000, is that revenue or cost?
Gross revenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go out to 5 years.
Okay.
3 is absolute minimum, guys, because your break even may not come until 5 years.
That's true. Yeah.
So we may ask you, especially with your cases, we may need to go out for 5 years.
Yeah.
So just plan on 5 years. If it isn't needed, it's fine, but it's better to have it.
Okay. So do you want them to do 5 years for
I
the
would
plan?
prefer them to
Okay.
do 5 years.
So 5 years for your plan. But for the business with the lender, 3 years is good enough. Yeah. They're a little bit easier. Okay. Now we want to look at all that research that you did, and we want to take that information and we want to plug it into this area. So you want to talk about the big picture. So what is this type of business you're going into? How big is that industry? What are the trends? You want to talk about the local market. You want to be able to compare yourself to like businesses. So you're creating the big picture that's going to surround your business. You're setting up the foundation so that it can be presented that your business is going to be viable in this market. So you're going to use different strategies. Are you going to penetrate the market? You know, you're going to penetrate certain ways, but how are you going to do that? Are you in an industry that's already saturated? How are you going to penetrate that type of market? So you're going to have to talk about those types of strategies. Competitive analysis, rule of thumb for us, you definitely want to acknowledge at least 3 direct competitors. The direct competitors have to be the ones that are as closest to you as possible. You want to do your SWOT analysis on them, and then you want to do a SWOT analysis on yourself. Okay, so make sure that's in there. And then we talk about your competitive advantage. So what is it that makes you better than the competitors? Using the information that you got from your SWOT. So what would those things be? And we just have some hints here: higher quality, better customer service, but then you have to explain how you're going to do these things. And then these are just standard in a plan, key success factors. Again, it goes back to industry knowledge. We can't stress that enough. So you need to be able to justify that you know what you're doing in this business. You want to also talk about your process. How is your business efficient? You want to talk about the quality of the product. Where are you getting your supplies, or where is your supplier? And you want to definitely talk about the marketing plan. So these are just saying, okay, these are the things that are going to make your business, could help your business to become successful. Okay, my favorite part, marketing. Who's a marketing major? Yay. Okay, so marketing is so fun. So with marketing, obviously, what you're trying to do is communicate with your customer, right? So you're trying to communicate with your potential customer. So how do you do that? Well, first you have to identify who that customer is. So create your customer profile. So the idea is, if you identify who this customer is, create the profile, whomever is reading it is going to have a visual. They're going to have an idea in their head what this customer looks like. So that's your challenge, is to be able to define your customer well enough so that anybody that's reading it will know who exactly this is you're talking about. And we get this so many times where, you know, you have, well, I have several types of customers, but you're always going to have a primary. So just focus on that primary right now. That's who we're going to focus on. And then you're going to have a secondary and then everybody else. So who are these people? And then what is your distribution process? How are you going to get your products or services to the customer? The more entities that touch your product before it gets to the customer, the more expensive it's going to be. So you need to be able to identify what the distribution process will be for that. If it's services, then you need to talk about the cycle. What is the process for you to provide that service from the time that the order is made to the time that the work is being done till the end when the customer receives the whatever it's going to be, the service? How does that work? And I'm going to guess there's going to be some accounts receivables in this type of model, so you need to be able to identify that, okay, or acknowledge it. Now, in your marketing plan, which is, it should be very well thought out, and you're going to probably hear from Jane on this. In your marketing plan, you have to start with your goals. So what are the goals that you have for this business? And then when you have your goals displayed, the next step is to create your strategy. So what strategies are you going to use to meet that goal? So when we say strategies, it could be things like, well, we are going to do direct selling. That's our strategy to connect with the customer, to sell to the customer. So you got your strategy. Now what are the tactics? What are the tasks that you're going to do in order to be able to accomplish this strategy? So does that mean that you're going to hire a sales force and your salespeople are going to do the direct selling? So that's fine, but then you talk about with your salespeople that are going to sell to the customer, we better see that you have a budget for them in the personnel plan, right? To make sure that it makes sense that that salesperson is selling to the customer. So everything's going to need to match up. So you're going to have a budget in your marketing plan, and it needs to match all of the other areas that it's going to affect. Does that make sense? Okay. So goals, strategies, tactics, and then from there you're also going to do your creative messaging. You're going to do your logos, your slogans, all that fun stuff will happen after that. Okay, so you're basically branding yourself. You're creating your brand with this. And then after you do your marketing plan, you're going to get into your management plan. So remember, as I was telling you earlier, this is critical because that's what, you know, whomever is going to look at it, your investor or lender is going to want to read this area. So the handout, or I'm sorry, the attachment is going to be the budget. It could be the flow chart as well, your policies and procedures, and then if you need one, a collections plan. Let me just back up real quick here. For the marketing plan, it would be really good if you already have a design that you can put at the front of the business plan. So maybe a sample logo, graphic. And if you can also attach photos of the products, if you can also attach things like a sample business card, something that shows how you're going to be able to market the business. Other things, if you want to be an overachiever, brochures, you can develop a sample website, or, you know, something fun, Facebook page, something that's going to show that you're really thinking this through and you have an idea of how you would be able to communicate. So we already went through the management and personnel, so make sure that's in there. Product, service, distribution methods, a flow chart would be perfect for this. Now the flow chart's going to be able to identify where this happens and how this happens. So from the time that the order is made for the product to the time that it goes into your facility and is processed, and all the way to the time that the customer receives it, there has to be a flow, right? There has to be a process. So identify how that's going to work. Quality control. This is something that people get confused about. They're like, well, how do I identify quality control? Well, I'll use the example of one of my clients. He has an ice cream shop. So how do you maintain quality of ice cream on Guam where it's really hot? And so he had to talk about things like the type of equipment that he needed to have, the storage facility, the backup generator, just in case, you know, what happens here, you know, the power goes out all the time sometimes. So looking at every possible way to make sure that your product maintains quality from the time that you get it to the time that the customer receives it from you, okay? Any questions in that area? Okay. Suppliers and facilities. So as I was saying earlier, make sure that you identify who the supplier is that you're going to get your products from. A hint would be to print out price quotes, sample product lists, any information about the supplier, attach it to the back. One of the things that we always talk about with the client is that in the very beginning of your business, the supplier is not going to do a COD. You're going to need to pay for it up front. So you probably are going to need a credit card or a way to be able to wire the money to them. So are you prepared for that? Is that in your plan? Are you going to use a company credit card or a personal credit card? And then you want to understand the payment process that's going to happen with this supplier. They offer discounts in certain areas. So another attachment could be the sales agreement so that you understand the payment process and requirements. And then with facilities, again, if you can attach the schematic, the layout, if you can attach if you can find blueprints, good luck, but that's always nice to attach. Anything else? Oh, take a picture of the facility, have the sample lease agreement, anything that can show information about the facility.
Also, when you're looking at suppliers, look at volumes, because just because you can purchase something in huge volumes may not be a good idea for your business as a startup.
And that's a very good point because you don't have the storage. You may not have the storage. So you won't be able to maintain the quality of the product because you just don't have the capacity to do that. And that's a big challenge, especially with food trucks, with that type of business. They just don't have the storage to be able to do that. And so they end up having to buy things at retail or buy things every day, and it can be really challenging for them.
And when you're buying like that, you may not be able to get credit because you are having to buy every day until you establish
Absolutely.
a relationship with your supplier. It may take you months before you're actually able to get a 30 days,
Definitely. And that's another challenge, especially dealing with food. It tends to be with the distributors that if the smaller your business is, the worse products you're going to get because they're going to service the bigger companies first, and then you're kind of at the end of the line. So quality is not necessarily going to be there for you. And that's a reality for many of our small businesses here. So billing and collections, please have this in that one area of operations. So you're talking about bookkeeping, record keeping. Who is going to do that? Are you going to have an assistant, or are you going to do it yourself? What software are you going to use for this? And then, are you going to contract out your accounting and tax preparation services to someone else? So just show that you've thought that through. And then what we're looking for is budget. How much are you going to spend in this area? If you're going to contract out the services to an accountant, then there needs to be a budget for the contractor that you're paying them per month, whatever it's going to be. So the last part is the financial plan. And so I'm just going to breeze through this because Jane's going to go through it more in her section. But keep in mind that the financial projections are a translation of your story. Okay? So anything that you put into your story, your narrative, it's going to be reflected here. And this is where we're going to see things like, okay, this person is not making enough money. And we're going to see that if the numbers show up as brackets at the very bottom line. Or if we look at your sales and then you've got this downward trend, okay, something's wrong. Why are their sales decreasing? So the numbers are going to be able to tell the rest of the story. So things to keep in mind. You need to put a list together of everything you can possibly think of to start the business. That's really important. That's going to be your startup. Okay, so startup costs. And then, where do you think you can get money? So you have to put that information together. Put a scenario. I'm going to get a loan. Okay, a traditional term loan, 5 years. Or I'm going to use my own money. That could be another scenario. So just figure that part out. And then you're going to need to put together a monthly operating budget. So what are all these fixed costs that you're going to have? Rent, maybe you're going to, obviously utilities for some people. You're going to have insurance you're going to have to pay every month. So what are all these things that you're going to be paying every month? Those are going to be your fixed costs. And then we're going to talk about the price and the cost. So this is your gross margin sheet. So this is a worksheet. It's an Excel file. It's 21 pages long, but you only have to fill up to page 6. And everything that you put in the first 6 pages, that includes this, is going to populate to what's going to be created for you at the end, which are going to be your 3 best friends in business. Do you know what those 3 statements are? Absolutely. So those are our 3 best friends. Yay, good job. We better thank your other instructors for that, right? That's very good. So we live and breathe our statements, and just as a hint, you know, those statements are going to help you to either grow as a business, because every time you want to apply for funding to expand the business, they're always going to want to see those 3 statements. And it could also be the detriment of your business if you don't have them. So make sure that you keep good records and you pay attention to these 3 statements, because that's really going to be the report card for the business. So make sure you have your product or service list, because that's how you're going to put together the cost, price, and profit margin for each of the products that you're going to be selling. And then what you're going to be able to figure out is your break-even analysis. So how much money do you need to make before you can start making a profit? And then you're going to be able to see the statements after that. So there's a little bit more that you're going to be able to see in that, and Jane will be able to show you. But just keep in mind that that will need to be put together for it to be a complete plan.